August 1945. World War II comes to an end. Japan surrenders to the Allies, giving up key areas of its vast empire, including a mountainous peninsula near the Chinese border, Korea. Korea is divided down the middle, along the 38th parallel. The Soviets occupy north of the line. The Americans move into the south. By 1948, there are two new Korean states, each reflecting the politics of its occupier. South Koreans vote to establish a republic, electing a president, Syngman Rhee. In the north, Kim Il-sung is made premier of a pro-Soviet communist dictatorship. Korea becomes the center of the Cold War struggle. Border conflicts break out almost immediately. 38,000 Koreans, most of them civilians, are killed before war even begins. In the pre-dawn hours of June 25, 1950, North Korea launches a surprise invasion across the 38th parallel. They are backed by logistics and arms from the Soviet Union and China. In 3 days, the North Koreans have captured Seoul, the southern capital. In Washington, President Truman orders U.S. troops into battle.
On Sunday, June 25th, Communist forces attacked the Republic of Korea. This attack has made it clear beyond all doubt that the international communist movement is willing to use armed invasion to conquer independent nations. The free nations face a worldwide threat. It must be met with a worldwide defense.
The United Nations, with the Soviet Union abstaining, votes to send an international fighting force to aid the South Koreans. The help is desperately needed. South Korea's army is disorganized and poorly equipped. Truman taps General Douglas MacArthur, an architect of World War II's victory in the Pacific, to head the multinational force. MacArthur's troops slow the communist advance, but can't stop it. U.S. and UN forces are squeezed into the southeast edge of the country. Their backs against the wall to the south, MacArthur orders a surprise amphibious attack at Incheon, on the western shore of the peninsula. It is a pivotal victory against the North Koreans. MacArthur believes that he is well positioned to drive the communists out of Korea entirely, ending the war. President Truman reluctantly agrees, afraid of escalating the war by drawing China onto the battlefield. The Southern Offensive gains momentum as U.S. and UN forces break through the stranglehold in Busan. They encounter little resistance from the exhausted communist troops. By November, they have pushed the enemy to the banks of the freezing Yalu River, which separates Korea and China. Here, American troops celebrate Thanksgiving in 1950. A bit of home on the North Korean border. MacArthur's goal of total victory seems within reach, but the war was far from over. On November 25th, China sends in troops, handily pushing the Allies back into South Korea. The Chinese cut off MacArthur's forces at the Chosin Reservoir. The men endure weeks of battle in sub-zero temperatures. more are lost to cold than to enemy fire. Without the president's consent or approval, MacArthur calls for a full-scale invasion of China. His defiance has pushed Truman to his limits. On April 11th, the president fires MacArthur for insubordination and calls him home. By summer 1951, the Korean conflict has bogged down into a bloody quagmire. No side can win without enormous further loss of life. Peace negotiations begin optimistically, but drag on for 2 years. So does the fighting. By the end of the war, the U.S. has suffered more than 157,000 combat casualties. Korea and China lose approximately 1 million soldiers each. Korean civilians fare worst of all, with nearly 2 million wounded or dead. Then, in July 1953, a breakthrough. Chinese, North Korean, and American representatives sign an armistice agreement. Only South Korea refuses.
We have stopped the shooting. That means much to the fighting men and their families, and it will allow some of the grievous wounds of Korea to heal.
The fighting is over, but nothing is resolved. The armistice eventually draws new boundaries between the North and South, just north of the 38th parallel. North and South Korea were separated by a 2.5-mile wide demilitarized zone that ran the length of the peninsula. Here, South Korean, North Korean, and United Nations troops have monitored each other's movements year after year after year. A sober reminder that the conflict in Korea lives on.